Como eu havia prometido ao longo dessa semana, hoje eu trago uma entrevista muito especial com uma das maiores lendas ainda vivas do blues rock. Simplesmente Fito De La Parra, baterista lendário de uma das minhas bandas favoritas de todos os tempos, que é o Kennedy Heat. Kennedy Heat, uma banda meio riponga, meio bluseira da Califórnia ao final da década de 60. Aquela banda que ficou imortalizada por clássicos como Going Up the Country e On the Road Again. Essa é uma entrevista muito especial para mim porque eu nunca pensei que um dia eu fosse entrevistar algum membro do Kennedy Heat. E o Fito De La Parra, que na verdade é mexicano, ele nasceu na cidade do México, ele é o membro que desde 1967, ele está na banda desde o segundo disco da banda, né, do grupo, ele continuou e sempre liderou o Kennedy Heat. Então desde 67 até hoje, 2023. Batemos um papo muito legal, ele falou sobre o início da carreira, ele falou sobre os primórdios do blues rock no México, ele falou sobre o Woodstock, ele falou sobre muita coisa bacana. Então, esse aqui é minha garrafinha de Green Label, é um whisky um tanto quanto, né, acima das despesas mensais e me foi dado por uma pessoa muito especial. Isso aqui que é um whisky de verdade, vem com rolha. E eu só bebo ele em ocasiões muito especiais e eu beberei ele para comemorar esta baita entrevista com Fito De La Parra. Portanto, sem mais delongas, sem mais enrolações, eu já peço para, por favor, quem puder, deixa o like e se inscreva no canal. Estava vendo nos Google Analytics, né, que 45% do povo que assiste os vídeos aqui do canal não se inscrevem. Ou seja, a cada 10, quase que metade não está se inscrevendo. Mas enfim, vou parar de ficar mendigando like, mendigando inscrições. Eu vou falar saúde para você e eu espero que vocês curtam essa entrevista porque ela foi muito, muito especial para mim. Saudações!
You are Hugo?
Yes.
Hello, Hugo. You're a young man. How come you're interested in our music?
Not so young. I'm almost 40.
Okay. Well, to me, you are young.
Okay. So, Mr. De La Parra, first of all, thank you so much for your kindness and attention in participating in this interview. It is a great pleasure to be able to talk to you. Now, since 67, you've been in one of my favorite bands of all time, the Kennedy Heat. But you were born in Mexico City in 46. When and how did you start playing drums? I mean, what song or musician encouraged you to start playing?
Well, it was actually my father's influence. My father used to take me to watch movies, early movies from the swing era, like the Benny Goodman story, the Gene Krupa story, the Glenn Miller story. So I started basically enjoying watching movies of swing music, of jazz music that my dad used to take me see. Then later on, in the late 50s, Bill Haley and the Comets came to Mexico for the first time, and we went to see him. And that was one of the first, well, it was the first rock and roll band I've heard, and it was one of the first rock and roll bands in history,
Yes.
Bill Haley and the Comets. Then later on, when I was about 12 years old, 12 or 13, my father gave me that record of Little Richard, the yellow record that says, "Here is Little Richard." And that was one of my main influences, and I started playing drums to that record. My first drum kit was just made of cookie boxes and cardboard boxes and one of those old-fashioned ashtrays they used to have in the 50s, made of metal. Maybe you've seen the, real campy stuff. Metal trashers, and that was my symbol. So that's how I started being a kid. And of course, very soon after, I got my first drum kit and I became a professional musician. Already by the time I was 13 years old, I already had a record deal with the Mexican bands that I was playing with. I was playing with some of the original Mexican rock bands from the era.
Yeah, you played with Los Sinners and Javier Baptiste, correct?
Javier Baptiste, yes. Javier Baptiste, who is also Carlos Santana's original teacher, too.
Yeah.
So Javier Baptiste was a good influence on us. He came from Tijuana and he brought all this rhythm and blues music into Mexico City. Because we in Mexico City, with my early bands, we were basically playing copies of the top 10 most famous songs from the hit parade, you see. And then when Javier came to Mexico, he brought all this blues music and blues influence. And that's when I started, getting into the blues and rhythm and blues. And I turned my back on pop music after that. And since then, my life has been always dedicated to blues music and a little bit of jazz too.
And also, Javier Baptiste also participated in a Kennedy hit album, Boogie 2000, right?
Yes, we invited him to play on that type of Latin song that Greg Cage wrote, called "The World of Make Believe." And Javier also toured with us. I took him to Italy once, to Europe, and it was nice. It was nice. He's still a very good friend of mine. He's 81 years old now, and he's still working. So we are getting pretty old, but we're still working.
I really want to do an interview with him. I have so much interest in his career.
I'll pass you his telephone number so you can talk to him.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I'll send it to you via email. I'll send you his information.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, when and how was your moving to US?
I moved. Well, first I came with Los Sinners, who was a famous Mexican band. We came to the US and try our luck here, and we worked. We changed the name of the band to Los Tequilas, so it was more Mexican,
Suggested name, right?
I know. So yeah, we worked in the US for a while in Los Angeles, and then we got caught working illegally, of course, and then we got sent back. So after that, I married an American woman, and I came to the US and the beginning of 1967, the end of 66, around that time. And I met the people of Canned Heat while I was already working in Los Angeles. In the 60s, in 1966 and 67, the music scene in Los Angeles was very nice, very fabulous. Yeah. There was a lot of clubs and a lot of new bands and this new stuff that happened in the late 60s that eventually was going to culminate with Woodstock and all those other great festivals. Yeah. So that's how I came. I came to the US in 1967 and I joined Canned Heat towards the end of 1967, in November of 1967.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you didn't play in Monterey Pop Festival, right?
I didn't play there. No, that was done before I joined.
Yeah. So I think it's a funny story, but the first time I saw something by Kennedy Heat was in an old vinyl store here in Rio de Janeiro. I'm from Rio de Janeiro. And then I saw a cover of Living Blues. And man, those colors, that psychedelics. So I asked the owner of the store, what was that band? And I'll never forget his response. Kennedy hit, oh, it's a bunch of white hippies playing the blues. Fucking good blues. Fucking good blues. How did you... I'll never forget that definition, you know?
That's good. That's a good definition. Yeah, we were really a hippie band, but we were dedicated to play the blues. And you know, the founders of the band, Bob Haidt and Alan Wilson, were experts in the blues. They were musicologists, and they were experts, and they knew a lot about it. And Bob had a very large collection of 78s. You may see some of his pictures on the internet and all that. And as I said, they were musicologists and experts in blues music, but they were not performers. So when they decided to make a band, they had to hire professional musicians like Henry Vestine and Larry Taylor and myself, that we already had previous experience on the stage. You see, we already been playing for a few years. So that's how the Canned Heat band got formed. There were 2 or 3 other drummers before I joined, and 2 or 3 other different bass players and guitar players before Larry joined. But eventually, what is known as the classic lineup of Canned Heat that came together when I joined in 1967, at the end of '67.
Previously, I spoke about psychedelism, and Kennedy Heat was at the epicenter of that psychedelic 60s in California, a cultural explosion, the counterculture, the expansion and questioning of perception through drugs like LSD, some mushrooms, all that colorful clothing. I've read some researchers refer to that period as a collective dream. Could you talk about that cultural scene? Of course, culture and musical scene.
Okay, definitely was a cultural awakening. As I said, it culminated with the Woodstock Festival. But I call it a renaissance in music. What happened was a musical explosion that happened towards the end of the 60s with us and with all the other bands that you know of the era, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, you know, etc., all of them. This came after what we call the British invasion, which was all the bands from England that came before that, you see. This explosion, this thing of the 60s, the movement of what I call the Renaissance in music was also because a lot of Black music being played and being recognized for the first time. The blues music and the mixing of blues music with rock and roll. That's what we did with the Canned Heat. It was the band that married country blues and rock and roll. As far as psychedelic, we used a little bit of psychedelic effects. You know, we have that tempura, the Indian effect on the road again, you know. That's considered psychedelic. It's more like Indian music. And the colors on the albums and all that, some of the sound of the guitars, the distorted sound and all that, that's part of the psychedelia. That's what we call it. But basically, we were more a blues band. We were a blues band that incorporated rock and roll into our music. So we mixed country blues and rock and roll. Not just city blues, but country blues, the earliest possible blues. Yeah. And that was really our thing. That was our thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, you are right. It was a renaissance in music, and it was a wonderful era that I don't think it can be repeated ever.
I don't play any instrument, but I consider myself as an ethnomusicologist. It's specified in blues, right? I love the 20s and the 30s blues, the country Delta blues, all the Tommy Johnson, Robert Johnson, Charlie Patton, all that great guys.
Right. That's it. You will be a good friends with Bob Haidt and Alan Wilson. They used to have friends like you, and they used to talk with them all the time. All this, I used to call them nerd record collectors. Nerdy record collectors. And that's how they started. They started like you. They were music lovers and musicologists that later they decided to make a band.
In my next life, we will have a band together.
Okay, you got it.
It's a promise.
That's good.
So, it is, you already quoted about Woodstock, but could you talk a little bit more about how was to participate in that special moment in US, in the world, and musically?
Okay, well, we were very popular at the time. In 1969, when the Woodstock festival happened, we had two records in the top 10, and one of them was Going Up the Country, which eventually became the theme of the Woodstock festival. Because whenever you think of Woodstock and the festival, you always think of that song, Going Up the Country, Baby, Don't You Wanna Go? And it also applies very much to the area because it is going up the country, up to the Catskill Mountains, where the farm, Max Jarsger's farm, was located. So you are going from New York City up the country to the mountains to the Woodstock Festival. I say that because some people come to me and ask me, why don't you do that song going down the country? I always tell them, no, it's not going down the country, it's going up the country. That's going up to the mountains to Max Jarsger's farm. That's where the big festival happened. And yeah, so as I said, we were very popular at the time, and we were the headlining act on the second day of the festival. And we played really good. It was a wonderful experience. It's the biggest festival I ever played in my life. I'm sure that it's not going to be anymore. And as I said, it was a wonderful experience, and I'm very happy that I was able to be there and represent Mexico too, together with Carlos Santana. We were the two guys from Mexico that play at the festival.
You talk about, right now, you talk about going up the country. That's very curious because I'm also a geography teacher, and this year, 2023, I use it going up the country in a test for my sixth grade students to show the difference between the urban and the rural. It was sensational. So I think this showed to us the truly power of music, right?
Absolutely. And did you play them the original Going Up the Country by Henry Thomas?
No. I played the Kennedy hit version.
Okay, it would be very nice if you play them the Henry Thomas version and the canned heat version.
Yeah.
Because the Henry Thomas version is great. Of course, we changed the words. We put different words. Alan Wilson changed the whole words, but the arrangement and the music is copied and is inspired by Henry Thomas. An old Texas blues classic performer.
Last month, I made a video biography about the blues legend John Lee Hooker. Could you please talk about the album Hooker and Heat? How did you the band get to him? It was Kennedy Heat idea.
Yeah, we were fans of John Lee Hooker's music since we were kids, since we started playing blues music. I heard John Lee Hooker's records even in Mexico City when I was with Javier. And one time we were arriving in Portland, Oregon, on the airport, and we see this black man on one of the carousels picking up his guitar a little farther away from us. And we noticed, hey, that's John Lee Hooker. So we went running towards John Lee Hooker. Of course, we love his music and we admire him so much. And this was our first chance to meet him in person. What a coincidence that we happened to be at the same airport at the same time. He was playing some kind of gig there. At the time, he was not very popular. He was not making that much money and nobody knew him. So we ran towards him. We were the groupies this time. We run towards John and we say hello to him. John Lee Hooker, we are the canned heat band. We love your music and we love you. And then John looks at us and goes, I like the way you boys boogie. That was his answer to us. I like the way you boys boogie. And that's when the idea came, when Bob said, okay, you know, we love you, we love your music, because, you know, in our music, you can hear John Lee Hooker's influence all the time.
All the time, sure.
All the time, in a lot of our music, the boogie, the fry hockey boogie, On the Road Again. I mean, John Lee Hooker's music is all over K&T. So anyway, so John said, I like the way you boys boogie. And we shook hands and we decided to make a record together. It took a few months for the record companies to, you know, to make a deal, because we were in different record companies, but eventually it happened. And it was a wonderful session. John didn't like to take more than 1 or 2 takes while we recorded. You know, it was like, you have to do it on the moment. And that is the part of the purity of the blues.
Yes.
You see, the purity of playing on the moment and improvising. And, you know, you improvise all the time when you're playing blues music. That's what makes it so different from many other forms of music that are much more stiff and prepared and programmed. All that doesn't count in the blues. In the blues is the moment and the inspiration that comes out in the moment. That's why you never play it the same twice.
Yeah,
it's always different.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a musician, please. I'm not a musician, but do you know what I love in blues? I mean, the original blues.
Hey, no fighting. My cats are fighting. I mean,
Okay.
no fighting. Never mind. So tell me.
Yeah, one thing that I love in blues, the original Delta blues, and then I love the wrong notes. I love the dirty sound. You know, it's not perfect. It's not perfect.
Of course, it's not supposed to be.
Yes.
You want perfection, you can listen to Mozart or Bach or something like that. That's wonderful too. But it is totally the opposite of this kind of music. You see, this music is more on the moment, and it's all about life. It's all about what's going on the moment, and then you improvise around the format. You see, and that's what makes it so pure and so primitive, and that's part of the appeal of blues music. That is primitive and it's primal. It inspires your primal instinct, the monkey in you. You know, that's what it is, and that's why it's so simple and so primitive, and that's the appeal of that kind of music.
So primitive, so pure, and so human. Blues music is human.
That's why I said it's primal.
Yeah.
You got to, you know, it affects you inside. It goes back to so much. Is the root of music.
Yes, perfect. Speaking of blues legends, Kenneth Heath also recorded a DVD with Clarence Gatemouth Brown in Montreux. Could you talk about the experience?
Yeah, that was something we didn't plan, as usual. You know, with blues music, you don't plan anything. We were playing at the Montreux Jazz Festival, and Clarence was there, and he didn't have a band to play with him. So the promoters asked us if we didn't mind to play with him, and we were very happy to play with him. We were privileged to play with Clarence Gatemouth Brown. He was a great musician, great harmonica player, and violin player and guitar player. I mean, he's so talented. So that's how that idea came up. We never rehearsed. You know, he just come on the stage and we play and we just follow him as good as we can. Hey, no fighting. I got a new cat, and the rest of my cats don't like him because you know how they are. They're territorial. You know, so they are arguing here a little bit. So anyway, that's how it happened with Clarence Gatemouth Brown. No rehearsal, no notice, no nothing. Just on the moment, they tell us, Gatemouth Brown is here. He doesn't have a band. You guys want to play with him? And we say, yes, of course. And we play it. I think it came out very good.
Yeah. Me too. Could you talk about the 2003 album, Friends in the Can?
That was an idea also inspired by another John Lee Hooker record called The Healer, where they invited several friends to be part of the album. So we figured if John Lee Hooker made a record with all these friends, we wanted to have a record that we invite friends too. So we call it Friends in the Can. And actually the original record, I don't know if you saw it, came in a can, in an actual can. The CD was in an actual metal can. And that was the idea in the initial release of the record was in a metal can. But later on, they made it a normal CD. So I don't know if you've seen the actual original. The original can version is considered a classic already. So in that Friends in the Can, we invited Taj Mahal, we invited John Lee Hooker, we invited Larry Taylor, was not in the band at the time, but he came back to the band to play there, and Henry Vestine, and Junior Watson, and I guess Robert Lucas was in it too. No, Dallas Hodge, and Corey Stevens. So we had several friends and people that were not part of the band, but we invited them to the session. That was the idea of making Friends in the Can.
Yeah. Mr. De La Parra, thank you so much for your attention. It was an honor to speak with a musician who experienced the height, the peak of blues rock and continues on the road for so many decades. I always playing with so great quality. Thank you so much to talk with me. Thank you.
Thank you for your interest, Hugo. It's very nice. It's the first time I do an interview with a Brazilian journalist.
Really?
So I've done several in Mexico and Argentina and Chile, but never in Brazil before. And I love Brazil. Brazil is a country of music.
Yes.
We all know that.
Yes,
your music is fantastic, and your people are fantastic, and you guys are my brothers, Latino Americano brothers.
And our not good. In our next life, our band, please.
You got it, man. Are you going to put this on YouTube? Are you going to translate this to Portuguese?
Yes. I'll put the subtitles.
Subtitles in Portuguese.
Yes.
That's good. I'm looking forward. I'll be looking forward in YouTube.
I'll send to you when I finish when I end the edition.
Okay, yeah, send me the link and I can look at it. And maybe we can talk again some other time, a couple of years.
Please, it will be my pleasure.
Okay, Hugo. Best of luck. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you so much, Mr. De La Parra.
And don't forget to boogie.
And don't forget the boogie. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.